Hello and welcome to Miles and Points 101. Over the course of these classes together, we will be learning practices to earn and redeem miles and points for heavily discounted travel, aka how you can save money and travel more. We're going to start at the very basics and lead you all the way into becoming a miles and points pro. Now, before we get into all the miles and points gold, I think it would be strange if we didn't get to know each other just a little bit. So I'm quickly going to introduce myself. My name is Megan. I am the community manager here at Daily Drop, and I have earned and redeemed over 1 million points, saving myself tens of thousands of dollars in travel. Back in 2016, I was a recent college grad who fell in love with travel after my first international trip, but I was on a nanny's salary, so I had to figure out a way to keep traveling, but a way that would fit in my budget. So I accidentally stumbled upon miles and points, and I ended up redeeming my very first points for a trip to the Maldives in 2017. It's pretty hard to stop this hobby after doing something like that, and so I haven't stopped since. I've been to 28 countries and counting, of course. I've met some really awesome people along the way, and I truly think the best way to learn all the miles and points stuff is together. So I'm so honored to take you through this course. Now let's start at the very beginning, the foundation of it all. What are miles and points? Well, miles and points are basically a form of currency that airlines, hotels, and banks offer in return for loyalty. Now let's clear up any confusion right now. If you're wondering what are the difference between miles and points, there is no difference between miles and points. It is simply a term that different entities choose to use. So for example, Capital One is a bank, but it uses the term miles. Air Canada is an airline, but it uses the term points. British Airways uses Avios, which is neither, but still the same. Basically, all you need to know is that miles and points are the same thing. It's just that different companies choose to call them different titles. So our miles and points live inside of banks as credit card points. They live inside of airlines as frequent flyer miles. They live inside of hotels in hotel loyalty programs. But the best, fastest, and easiest way to earn almost as good as free travel is through credit card points. So that's going to be our focus over our course together today. Now, there might be some reasons and even some reasons we'll talk about where you might want to have those frequent flyer mile loyalty numbers, those hotel loyalty member numbers available. And we'll touch on some of those examples. But by far, the best, fastest, and easiest way to earn points towards travel is through credit cards. And if you're cringing at all at that word, don't worry, we are going to get there too. Now that brings us to making sure that you are in the right room before we get too much further together. Now, there is a misconception that in order to maximize on miles and points, you need to travel full time. But just as I said, the fastest points will be earned when you're on the ground through cards, not when you're traveling around. So if you do want to travel full time or you are traveling full time, great. And you can still earn and redeem miles and points if you're a family traveler, if you only go on one trip per year. No matter what your travel style is, there are ways for you to earn and redeem miles and points. And we are starting at the very foundation, so this is definitely a space for beginners in the miles and points world. If you are a little more intermediate or advanced, I personally think it's always good to go back to the basics and make sure your foundations are in place. But this is designed for beginners, walking you all the way into becoming a miles and points pro. But basically, if you love to travel and you love to save money, then you are in the right place. So the good news is, no matter what your travel style is, you're in the right room. And even if you're well versed in the language of miles and points, I always think it's a good idea to go back to the basics. So who this is not for. Now, as I've shared, we are going to be talking about some ways to earn and redeem using cards. And if you are someone who has a bad credit score or a low credit score, you're going to need to work on bringing that up before you can really implement the strategies that we're going to share in this course. If that's you, or if you're not sure, there is a resource linked below this video that can kind of help you see where you could get started. Now, to my friends that don't live in the US, we are going to be talking directly about programs that are US based. That being said, the principles are the same no matter where you live, especially in Canada, according to our in-house Canadian and head writer, Mike. And then finally, if you can't keep your spending under control, it would be incredibly counterproductive to spend more money than you have in order to earn rewards to earn travel. That is not going to make sense in the end. So if you can't keep your spending under control, the idea with earning and redeeming miles and points using cards is to always, always, always keep your spending the same. That being said, I know that that is totally something you can learn to do. So stick with us, learn the methods, get that spending under control, and then you can implement. And what better inspiration than some free-ish travel to get you on track?